Since the beginning of the Ukraine invasion, Russian President Vladimir Putin has leaned heavily on China, and specifically its leader, Xi Jinping, to keep money flowing into Russia's war machine. But that arrangement may be unraveling. Xi appears to be stepping back from this support, and the consequences for Russia's economy could be devastating. Although the relationship between China and Russia seemed to strengthen after February 2022, recent developments suggest she may have been using Putin all along. The turning point? Oil. The one major commodity Russia still exports to countries that haven't sanctioned it. Oil has been Russia's economic backbone during the invasion of Ukraine. Since the war began, Russia has faced a staggering total of 24,311 sanctions from Western countries, including the United States, Canada, and the European Union. Of those, over 21,600 were imposed after the invasion started. Many of these sanctions targeted Russia's oil sector. Prior to the invasion, the United States was importing 209,000 barrels of Russian crude oil per day and 500,000 barrels of refined products like diesel and gasoline. By October 2023, that number had fallen to just 36,800 barrels, and by November, it dropped further to only 9,900. Despite this, Russia's oil industry remained resilient. In 2024, revenues from oil and gas sales contributed approximately $108 billion to the federal budget, a 26% increase from the previous year. How is this possible? The answer is simple: China. While India accounted for 38% of Russia's crude oil exports, and both Turkey and the EU bought around 6% each, China was by far the largest buyer. It purchased about 47% of Russia's crude oil exports and 12% of its refined oil products, amounting to nearly $50 billion of Russia's total oil revenue. That financial lifeline is now in danger. Xi Jinping appears to be reducing oil purchases from Russia significantly, an economic move that could hit Putin where it hurts most. According to Professor Scott Lucas of University College Dublin, the shift in Chinese policy has a lot to do with U.S. pressure. In an interview with Times Radio, Lucas said that Chinese state oil companies, including Sinopec and Sinochem, halted their Russian oil purchases entirely during March. Other major firms like CNPC and PetroChina drastically cut back. This decision follows growing concerns in Beijing about escalating U.S. tariffs, especially under Donald Trump's recent trade policies. Trump threatened secondary sanctions against any country purchasing Russian oil, warning they could be blocked from doing business with the United States or face tariffs as high as 50%. For China, already facing a combined 54% tariff on goods exported to the U.S., the threat of additional penalties was enough to cause a strategic retreat. Russia's oil industry brings in roughly $9 billion each month. With nearly half of that coming from Chinese purchases, any disruption could mean a loss of $4 billion or more in monthly revenue. For an economy already under pressure, with Russia's federal reserves having fallen from $113 billion pre-invasion to under $56 billion, that's a serious blow. Russia is believed to be spending between $500 million and $1 billion daily on its war effort. Much of this is funded through oil sales. But with dwindling reserves and decreasing Chinese support, the financial strain is becoming unsustainable. Further complicating matters for Russia, a new bipartisan bill in the U.S. Congress proposes even harsher penalties. Sponsored by 25 Republicans and 25 Democrats, the legislation seeks to impose a 500% tariff on any country purchasing Russian oil, gas, uranium, or similar products. If enacted, China would face tariffs exceeding 550% on its exports to the U.S. Given that China earned over $438 billion from its trade with the U.S. in 2024, it simply cannot afford to jeopardize that relationship. As a result, Beijing appears willing to sacrifice its oil trade with Russia to protect its broader economic interests. While China has helped Russia sustain its war efforts through indirect means, selling machine tools, microelectronics, and possibly even drones, Xi Jinping has been careful not to offer direct military aid. This allows China to maintain plausible deniability and avoid crossing red lines with the West. Moreover, China has continued to do business with Ukraine. In December 2024, Beijing appointed Ma Shunkuan as its new ambassador to Ukraine. That same year, bilateral trade between China and Ukraine reached over $14 billion, making China Ukraine's top trading partner. Xi's withdrawal from Russian oil might not be a betrayal in the traditional sense, but a calculated decision based on China's national interest. He appears to be playing all sides, offering just enough support to Russia to maintain strategic leverage, while leaving the door open for improved relations with the West. Professor Lucas argues that China's approach is guided by self-interest. With global attention focused on Ukraine and Israel, China has greater freedom to act in regions like Taiwan. Military drills conducted by the People's Liberation Army around Taiwan in early April show Beijing's willingness to push boundaries while the world is distracted. Vladimir Putin may have believed he had Xi Jinping's unwavering support, but Xi has demonstrated time and again that he prioritizes China's long-term economic and geopolitical gains over any ideological allegiance. The reduction in oil purchases is just one sign of this. As China distances itself from Russia's oil, the financial impact on the Kremlin could be severe, potentially limiting Putin's ability to continue the war in Ukraine. Xi's calculated moves suggest that if supporting Putin threatens China's stability or economic success, he will not hesitate to walk away. Is China's shift away from Russian oil a betrayal or a strategic realignment? Does it show Xi is using Putin for his own ends, or is this just diplomatic pragmatism in action?